Okay, we're spinning up, spinning up. Here we are. Good morning, Kyle. It's so good to see you.
Good morning, Anne. How are you? Did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend. Yes, very busy and wonderful. And there's water in Buckingham Fountain. So every day at like 11 a.m., I'm looking because it's going to spray off very soon. And I'm very excited. And you just got back from a quick little
I went
visit.
finally to California, which is one of my favorite places. And it was exactly like it is here today.
Except you got to see people that you care about.
I did, and I got to spend 4 hours on a plane there and 4 hours on a plane back.
But you've postponed this trip, I think, 4 times because of COVID.
Really?
So I'm so happy that you were able to go. That's so great. All right, you ready to start our show?
Yeah.
Let's hit it. Alrighty, good morning, everybody. This is Ann Rossley. I'm with Kyle Harvey. We're with Baird Warner, and we're here to talk to you today about the Chicago housing market, what's going on in real estate, tips and tricks for making your best real estate transaction. Today, Kyle, we are talking about condos and how to make a wise purchase decision with condos, because you're buying not just a condo, you're buying a building. You're buying a part of a building. And we'll get to that in a minute, but we're going to talk first about statistics. You ready to go?
I sure am. What have you got?
Okay. Well, I'm doing something a little bit different today. Okay.
Excellent.
We're going to talk specifically today, because last time we talked about the fact that there's basically no inventory out there. And we talked about different neighborhoods and blah, blah, blah. Today, I want to talk specifically about single-family homes, particularly 4-bedroom single-family homes, which seems to be, what a lot of people are looking for. And then we'll look at condos. So 4-bedroom single-family homes for sale. I looked at 4 neighborhoods here: Lincoln Park, Lakeview, Westtown, and North Center. And I wanted to show you where we are in terms of number of homes for sale. And I know they're all tangled up here. This is Lincoln Park that has the highest number of homes for sale with 67. Inventory's off 36% versus April of last year. And remember, April, we were in COVID. So Westtown single family homes, and that would be like Wicker Park, Ukrainian Village. Their inventory is actually up 30% versus last year. But again, nothing to worry about with that trend, I don't think. Lakeview's down 3% and North Center is down 61%. But let's look at,
Can we go back one quick sec?
Of course.
We are now in year-over-year time with comparing 2021 to 2020.
Right.
And the stats for the next 4 months, 3 months are not going to make sense. So looking at Lincoln Park being down so dramatically, and Westtown being up so dramatically, don't read too much into it. What you should read into it is we don't have enough homes for the demand. But it's because we're in cockamamie time right now, because it comparing it to April, comparing it to May of last year just doesn't make sense from any kind of thing. But anyway, let's keep going.
Well, but to your point, if you look at the graph and you can see kind of, this is by month, so it's a little volatile, but you've got your typical spring market up here, and then you come down to the holiday season and spring market and holiday season, and then, but down here in Lincoln Park with 67 homes, that is significantly lower
than where it should be during the spring market.
Right. Yeah, right. It would typically be up in this range right here. Do you see my
higher? Yeah.
Arrow? Higher. Yeah. And Westtown, kind of the same thing, is because here we are here, and granted it might be up, but look, spring markets have been up here.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, but what I'm saying is, when we look at the percentage stuff,
the plus and the minus,
forget it, because it's comparing to last year, and last year is cuckoo.
Absolutely right. So here I thought this would be an interesting graph because how many times do our clients say to us, what does a typical single family home cost me? So these are median sales prices. Lincoln Park, 1.8, Lakeview, 1.5, North Center, 1.2, and Westtown, $1 million. And again, you see this volatility in price, and sometimes that's just because of what happens to be on the market.
Wait a second. Are these median of across sizes?
Four bedrooms. No, four bedrooms.
That makes sense because people are panicking. They're saying, "Oh my God, that's so expensive." But these are the larger homes.
Exactly right. And you're right, 4-bedroom and up. So that's that. Okay, and then supply, and this is what we were talking about before. Like everybody knows, this is my favorite statistic: rate of sale. How long would it take us to sell out what's on the market given how quickly things are selling? 6 months, 5.5 to 6 months is neither a buyer nor a seller market. Lincoln Park, it's 4.2 months. Wait, this doesn't look right.
No, it says it's 5 months.
I know. Oh, I said up 0.4. Okay, that's why. I'm looking at the wrong number. It's up 4.2, but forget that. It's 5 months. So it's basically a seller's market.
Light seller. Yep.
Light seller. Light seller. Seller light. Okay. Lakeview, 4 months supply. Westtown, 3 months, and North Center, 2.6. Now, if you recall, this is about where our median sale prices are, which says the lower the price point, the faster the sales, the lower the inventory, the lower the supply of homes for sale. Perfectly logical. Mm-hmm. Okay, ready to talk condos?
I am.
All right. So for condos, we're looking at Loop, Near North, Westtown, and Lakeview. So number of condos for sale in the Loop is 606 right now. And this is all sizes of condominiums. And that's up 37%. For those of you who are seriously studying the market, you know that there are 3 major new construction projects going on right now with condos for sale and condos closing. They are the Parkline, 60 Randolph. They are the St. Regis at 363 Wacker, and the Cirrus at 211 North Park. Cirrus and St. Regis both being in Lakeshore East. So that is really driving the inventory and the sales in the Loop right now. And that's why, the inventory is so far up. In terms of Near North, which is our red line here. Oh, wait a minute. I'm telling you the whole wrong thing.
No, you're right.
Okay. Well, anyway, this is Near North.
Yeah, that's Near North.
But that's because we've got studios, 1s, 2s, blah, blah, blah. The Loop inventory is still up. I wasn't wrong. I was just pointing to the wrong line. So they're up almost 50%. And Westtown and Lakeview have lower inventories. Not a surprise. They're more mixed neighborhoods with condos and single family homes, but they have fewer condominiums for sale, and inventories down in Westtown, up a little bit in Lakeview. All right. Median sales price. Westtown has the highest median sales price for a condo of any size at $485,000. The Loop is at $437,500, again, driven by those luxury condos at St. Regis. And the Near North has $395,000 as its median sales price, with Lakeview at $387,500. Interesting. You can see the Loop number going way up here in median sales price. They had like 6 St. Regis condos close this month. Yeah. So that's what that's all about.
And some of those condos at the St. Regis are, in the multi-million dollars, which will really skew things.
2, 3, and 4 million, absolutely. Okay, so supply of condos for sale. The Loop here in blue, 10 months worth of inventory. The Near North side, 9.7 months worth of inventory. And then more moderate markets, you've got Westtown at 2 months and Lakeview at 2.7. So there's not a lot of inventory. And again, it's telling the story that we don't have a lot of inventory right now.
Yeah. Well, I also wonder if, on some level, the fact that the near north side and the loop are declining, meaning that people are actually starting to buy again. And so that number of homes, I don't think it's just people taking things off the market. It's showing that those areas are starting to recover, I think.
I think you're exactly right that it is starting to recover. So that's the story in a nutshell of what's going on in the marketplace.
Well, I'm really excited about our conversation coming up about condos. I live in a condo, and they sometimes get bad raps, especially after COVID, when people are like, "Oh, I don't want to live close to people." One and two, in an era of low interest rates, some of these buildings, especially, for example, the one I live in, have fairly high homeowners assessments. And so it's really understanding what you're getting for the money and deciding whether that's for you. So let's jump right in.
Okay. Well, to your point, exactly. When we go and take our clients out to show them condos, part of the education process is, what should you expect when you're looking at a condo? How do you evaluate it? How do you think about it? How does that all work? And oftentimes we have young buyers who want low assessments, and what that often means is property management and how the building is managed comes into play. So the first thing we look at is, who's the property manager, and what are they all about? So in a walk-up, it might be self-managed. In a high-rise, it's going to be professionally managed, but who's managing it? So
yeah, and it's self-managed can work very well until you get into a fight, and then you don't have an adult in the room. What you have are other owners taking sides about the biggest investment that they have,
right.
And whether you are comfortable with a dispute among the people that you live with, they'll be your neighbors, your close neighbors, it's a fair question. One of the nice things about living in a condo that is professionally managed is that you've got an adult who's the manager or the management company saying, you've got to behave yourselves, and there's a process for dealing with disputes. It doesn't mean it's all going to run smoothly, but it runs more smoothly.
Absolutely. And a couple things to think about. I have had two interesting situations. One where it was a 3-unit. My clients were on the first floor, and the developer controlled the second and the third floor. So they didn't have an opportunity to assert their will, and they had some issues, and they had to sue that owner, and it was miserable, and they ultimately ended up leaving that condominium. I also had a cute young buyer who was buying a unit where there were 2 units, and it was 51% to 49%. And she didn't have, and she just walked away. And I think smartly so, because it could have been okay if she was simpatico with that other owner, but she would never have a controlling vote, or, as you said, a third party to mediate.
Yeah, and it can be tricky, but it also can be great. So one of the things that we, Ann and I, have been telling especially our younger buyers, during this period of terrifically low interest rates, buy as much property as you can for your money, and keep the HOA, homeowners assessment, and taxes as low as you can, so that you get the most real estate for your money. And so it can work out well, but you have to be much more proactive. You have to know enough about yourself to be somebody, am I somebody who is cooperative, or am I somebody who likes to get my own way? And if you are somebody who likes to get your own way, get into a big condo building.
Right. And get on the board. I always recommend people get on the board so that they can have a say.
Yes. So let's talk about property managers, good, bad, and ugly.
Oh my gosh, yes. Go ahead.
So there are different types. So when you're looking at a big condo building, there's on-site property managers and there are off-site property managers. The off-site property managers often, especially for the very large ones, moved off-site during COVID. But there's nothing like having a property manager who has an office on site. They see what's going to happen. The building tends to be in better condition because the property manager is walking the property every day. We have an on-site property manager in my building, and I got to tell you, every problem is jumped on because he sees it every day. So that can be helpful. But, you know, and it's a big property company and we pay a lot for it. What's your feel of this?
No, I totally agree. And, you know, we aren't just blowing smoke when we say to a client, this property manager is very responsive. Or oftentimes, if I know that I'm in a building where the building engineer is really good, and that's another thing that's part of this, you know, a building engineer who's been there a long time is magic. And I've had building engineers come in and say, oh yeah, we've renovated this. You can take down this wall. You know, we can replace these HVAC units for X number of dollars, and I can even find you a used one for this less dollars. You know, I think off the top of my head, 1555 Astor's got Mikey is magnificent. So, you know, there are all kinds of things to think about like that. Then there are, you know, managers that just don't want to work so hard.
Yeah. But very often with the big management companies, if you've got one of those, and they exist everywhere, if you've got one of those, the board can change them out.
That's exactly right.
And some of this is also how well the board works with the property manager. If the board is active and staying on top of the property manager, you're more likely to have somebody who is on it, paying attention. Also, a good board will do those engineering studies.
Yes.
So that you.
And for those of you who don't know, an engineering study is when they bring somebody in and say what mechanicals need to be replaced, what exterior systems, you know, when do we need to repair the outside, because every building needs updating, and they plan for it, and none of it is a surprise. And I love to see that happening.
Absolutely. And so those are the kinds of things that we will counsel that you look at as we go through this process, as we go through looking at our due diligence on certain buildings. All righty, self-management. They often meet just like once a year. Tends to be the same person as president all the time, and that creates sort of a fiefdom and a resistance to answering questions. And then sometimes they're great. So, you know, it really depends. It really depends. And that's the answer. We can't do due diligence so much on these small ones because they're private and no one tells you anything. So
right. And one last caveat: if you are in a small building that's self-managed, please make sure you stay up to date on minutes and budget, because when you anybody in your building sells, the lender's going to require that information. And I had a property that almost didn't close because they didn't do their budget in a manner that the lender could approve it. So they had to redo the budget 3 times to format it in a way. So just things to think about, and also make sure that you have 6 months worth of assessments in reserve at all times. So that's that. So let's talk about rental units in buildings. That's a biggie.
Well, that is a biggie because going back to that mortgage point, there are some mortgage lenders who will not lend to a building that is very investor friendly, meaning a lot of rentals.
And it affects, the number of rentals affects the feel of the building. If it's too transient, if it's too rowdy, if there's too much wear and tear, because renters tend not to take as good a care of a unit as the person who's paying the mortgage. So
I just rented, or I just helped somebody rent a unit in a building in Lincoln Park, a very well-known building that's condo, but is very investor friendly. And the non-refundable move-in, move-out fee, $800.
Oh, because they've been burned. Interesting. Yeah.
Or because they've decided to make money off of all the
in and out. That makes sense. Yeah.
Don't you think? I don't think.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I think you are right. Sure.
Right. So
deter that a little bit. Yeah. So a lot of these buildings do have rent caps where they say you have to have, 70% owner occupancy, you have to have 80% owner occupancy, and those tend to create stable buildings. However, of course, the downside to that is that if somebody says, ooh, I may want to convert to investment, or if I lose my job and I just need to rent it out rather than maybe go into pre-foreclosure, will I be able to do that? And so, there's no hard and fast rule over what is good, what is bad in terms of rent caps, but it's something to look at, be aware of, and just know that, we have some very high-end buildings that haven't imposed rent caps and are high owner occupancy just because that's the kind of building they are. So
yeah, and there are certain buildings that have actually quite complex rules. For example, that you have to own for a period of time, 1-2 years, and then you can only rent for a certain period of time, and it's really opaque, these kinds of rules. And I think it's probably coming up with these rules for people who get transferred out of town for a year, or whatever. But during the downturns, the serious economic downturns, a number of buildings have suspended some of their rules to reflect the reality that some of their owners have been unable to sell or whatever. So again, to your point, they can be flexible if there's real need. So hardship cases, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Now talk about and this is really important, heating systems, especially if you're transitioning from winter to spring and having warm days and cold days. It could be meaningful. Tell us about that, Anne.
Yeah, absolutely. So heating systems will trend based on when the building was built. Buildings that were built turn of the century, the 20s, those are going to have radiator heat probably, and either window air conditioners or people have put in space pack over the years. Then as we got into mid-century modern with the Mies van der Rohe, then we had more central systems with heat and air. The 70s were all about electric, and oftentimes you'll see these units that are electric in the wall that do both heat and air. And then we also have systems that are what we call 2- and 4-pipe systems. And that's where water is run up, then water comes down, and then it's either heated or cooled. It goes up, it goes down, and then every unit has a fan to blow it out to either heat or cool, depending on the year. And to Kyle's point, in the spring and fall, a 2-pipe building has only cool water or hot water. So you'll get these days where you're in transition and it's hot outside, but you still got warm water in the pipe. Or in the fall, it gets cold outside and you still have cold in the pipe. And it's a little bit more challenging. You have to open your windows and do some other things to take care of that. But nowadays we're seeing more and more buildings being built with the 4-pipe system. And what that means is you can have hot or cold whenever you want, because they have cold up, down, warm up, down, and fans for both. And you have thermostats and they're zoned. So
yeah, I tell people who have internal heating systems, the people who are very sensitive to heat and cold, you want to be in a 4-pipe system. You just do.
Yeah.
The 2-pipe will upset you, and so fine.
Yeah, exactly right. The other thing to think about is if you're in a building that has radiator heat, you get wonderful warm heat, but they tend to have higher assessments because it costs a little bit more to run it, and your heat's included. You get into some of these condominium buildings even have their own furnace and air conditioning system, the walk-ups and so forth. So in that case, you have total control. But in the big buildings, you want a 4-pipe.
Yeah, and there are you point out, or you've pointed out over time, that there are certain buildings still sort of in the late 60s, early 70s that have window units for heat and air that are sort of built in every room, and they look, they can be distressing.
You can see them.
I know.
If you drive up Lakeshore Drive, you can see some of these buildings with that things coming out of the wall. So that's what that's all about. So,
yeah. Another thing. So I've had people who like gas stoves and people who like electric stoves. And it's really interesting how there's starting to be a real desire for one or the other. I don't care, I barely cook. But there are people who only will do gas, and then there are people who are like, I want to put electric in a gas building. It's like, okay.
Well, they like the induction, they like the smooth, yeah. But, again, you go to those buildings that were built in the 70s and 60s, and they're electric only, and you can't get gas. And there are a couple even in Museum Park that are electric only. But, yeah, you can't always put electric in if you prefer it. But if you want gas, you've got to find a gas building. And, of course, the other thing is most buildings come with a microwave over the oven, over the range. But the more luxury buildings have a hood over, and then the microwave is somewhere else. And sometimes when they have a hood, that doesn't mean they vent out. It means they might just recirculate, which I find interesting. But, I'm in a building where it does vent out, and I'm so supremely happy because I don't smell my neighbor's cooking smells. But again, something to look at when you're looking at condos, if that's important to you.
Yeah. Now we'll go to a lot of people say, why are HOAs so expensive? Why are they so high? And sometimes it's because it's an older building, but sometimes it's because of staff.
Staff, right.
People cost money. And if you want to have staff, so what do you tell your people about the staff of a building?
Well, again, you're paying for something that really you need to decide what's important to you. So when you pay more, you're going to have somebody there at the door. It's a security feature. It makes sure that your guests are announced, that people don't find a way to sneak into the building behind somebody else. Your packages are much better cared for in this day and age of everybody getting packages all the time when you have door staff. And I'm finding, today more and more people want to age in place, and they'd rather not go to a senior living facility if they can help it. Well, one great way to deal with that is to go to a building where you've got superior staff. So, I was just showing at the Carlisle this week. Their staff is magnificent. They'll bring your groceries up to your door for you. I mean, you don't even have to put it on a cart off the car and take it up. They'll just do it. And there's several other buildings like that. Bring your packages up that are delivered to you. I know at 1120 Lakeshore Drive that your mail comes up to your unit. Now that's a co-op, but again, it's the idea of the staff. So,
I lived overseas for a number of years, and I was able to keep my place and not worry that something would happen to it, like a leak or this or that, because I had staff, and they would come in while I was gone, just make sure the place hadn't, gone bananas in my absence, and that's meaningful.
Right. That you bring that up. My owner at 1301 Dearborn spent a few months with her family. They started her car every week. They forwarded her mail for her. So I'm not saying for people who want that kind of service, those buildings are out there. The same is true for cleaning, having a good, strong cleaning staff to make sure that everything is clean. That's important to me.
There's some buildings, smaller co-ops in the Gold Coast area that have a live-in engineer. So there's an engineer who's a permanent. He and his partner or wife are the only staff, but they do the thing that is most important to these smaller buildings, which is maintain the building. And and they handle certain packages, but so that can work for a smaller building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about windows.
Yes.
Windows in a building. When I first got into real estate, a lot of buildings that were built in the 50s, 60s, needed replacing in the 80s, 90s, and that yielded huge assessments.
Yes. The 2010s, the big expense was updating your elevators. In just the period you were talking about, it was changing out windows, because the technologies for windows has become so much better and so much more energy efficient. And so sometimes you'll look at buildings, and we can think of a number we won't say right now, but I foresee in the next 10 years big projects. And because these buildings have floor to ceiling windows, and many windows across every unit has 15, 20 windows, because they're the entire outside wall. That's going to be significantly expensive.
Right. Well, even like 1212 Lakeshore Drive, they've got the sliding glass doors across the front facing the lake, and they're the unit owner's responsibility. Some have been replaced, some have not. And it's a huge difference in those that have been replaced. But the other thing to think about is, are floor to ceiling windows a big deal for you? You know, buildings like the St. Regis or the Legacy, people really think that's sexy to have floor to ceiling windows and views all around. But there's a downside to that too, right, Kyle, in terms of heat and,
Well,
whatever.
not only that, bleaching your furniture and your floors. I mean,
yeah.
And also walking into your own home and being blinded by a little south-facing light or west-facing light. It can be significant. But going back quickly to the windows, you made an excellent point. Windows are very often a limited common element, meaning the building owns them, but you're going to pay. So when it comes time for my units, windows to be replaced, the building will tell me what window to buy and order them for me, but I will be charged. So yeah, the building owns them, but the bill is on the unit owner to pay for the work, pay for the change. So
all right.
So a couple things. So what we ask is, how recently were windows replaced, especially for the smaller buildings? So think about the 3 flats. Some of these 3 flats have what's it called? Split face block, and sometimes that will impact a window. So what you will ask when we're taking you to see some of these smaller buildings is, when were the windows replaced? Are they in good shape? We'll be looking for whether there is any fogging, which means that the seal is broken. That'll tell you whether those have to be done. And we'll also want to understand how you'll be able to clean those windows, because very often in small buildings, the building isn't going to pay for a window cleaner to come and do everyone's windows like the big buildings do. So you want to know, how am I going to actually be able to reach the window? How am I going to, you'll want those windows that sort of fold in so that you can clean all that kind of stuff.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely right. All right, let's talk cars and parking quickly. Gosh, we could talk about this all day.
We'll talk more later. Okay, good. Cars and parking.
So cars and parking. Is it valet or is it self-parked? Deeded or assigned? When you park your car, do you have to take one elevator and then change elevators to get to your unit, or can you go directly up to your unit? And then most recently, charging stations. That is the big hot topic in buildings right now, people buying electric cars and not having a place to charge them. So those are all part of the whole condo buying experience.
And especially the charging stations, because the car companies are moving away from gas automobiles by the end of this decade. Buildings are going to have to come up with a whole plan, because that's a game changer. So absolutely, you're a great point. So let's do more of these on the next time, because we're sort of out of time, because we have a lot.
Okay, that sounds good to me. So we will wrap it up for today. I've got a list of like 30 more things, but if you are watching us and you have questions about your condominium building, any issues you want to talk about, things you'd like to weigh in on, please put it in the comments section or direct message us, and we would love to talk about it next week when we get together.
Thank you so much, Anna. As always, it was great to see you.
It was good to see you too, Kyle. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week on Monday Morning Coffee with Kyle and Ann. Take care.